Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
Hello.
And if you're a regular listener, you know what we're all about. But if you're tuning in for the first time, then I should let you in on what it is that we do. We're a talk show. We're based on topics all around metaphysics and spirituality. And sometimes we have fantastic guests on that are here to inspire you.
You mean we always have fantastic guests on?
No, sometimes we don't have a guest though, do we? It's just you and I. So
Okay.
I'm not being inaccurate when I say that.
That's true.
But today is a day when we do have a guest. And but before we begin, I should just mention that we are broadcasting from CIVL on 101.7 FM. From the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. So, once again, this is Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. And today's guest, whose name is Iris Barrat. And she's joining us today because she's going to help us learn how to tell the truth in a fun, rewarding, and safe way.
Oh, I'll have to hang up now.
That would be really good, wouldn't it, if we could all do that? So that's what today's topic is. It's all about telling the truth and finding ways, to tell, because sometimes it's hard to tell the truth, isn't it? So we want to find ways to be able to do that are non-confrontational and feel safe for everybody. So let me just tell you a little bit about Iris, and then we'll get going on picking her brains about this topic. So she's known as the anonymous instigator.
It's true.
And she's an award-winning author, and she's very passionate about teaching community education and personal enrichment. She's also a palmist and a Mayan astrologer. So it'd be lovely to ask her about that as well, because that's very fascinating. And she appears on PBS with those skills that she has as an astrologer and palmist. She's also got a comedy show, which is called Ranting of a Psychic Grandmother. And she calls people out on their annoying, dysfunctional behavior and delivers the truth through her Evolving Genius Awards. She's also got a do-it-yourself comedy game, which we'll ask her about, because I think we could all do with a bit more comedy in our lives. Nothing like comedy to uplift the spirits. She's based in Eugene in Oregon. She's been an entertainer for 30 years. But what's unique about Iris, and one of the main things that we were going to talk about today, is she anonymously sends people awards to spread unconditional love, support, and encouragement. And she encourages other people to emulate her by also being anonymous benefactors. And she's got all these different kinds of awards. She's got truth-telling awards to inspire people to be courageous, anonymous truth tellers. And so she gives people awards for being drama queens and narcissistic numbskulls and mindless moochers and things like that, and I'm sure lots of other things as well. And and she says they're delivered with humor, and it's about telling the truth anonymously in a fun way, that's in a way that can benefit everyone. And so she's excited to be here today to share her about her
insanity.
Thank you.
So Iris, welcome to the show. And so you send anonymous messages to people, sometimes from yourself and sometimes assisting other people to send anonymous messages. And some of those messages are to honor people and some for other reasons. So please do tell us more.
Well, wherever you'd like to start, I kind of do the light side and the dark side. So First, I'd like to talk about honoring people anonymously.
Great.
It's a fabulous way to share unconditional love, because when you do something anonymously, you do it without an agenda other than to be magnanimous and kind. So it sort of started out, I had a friend that was an elementary school teacher in a spiritual group that I belonged to, and she was very sad how some of these children were suffering. The parents were out to lunch on drugs and alcohol, and somebody had just moved in with grandmother. And I went home and I created a gifted and talented child award. And it's very uplifting. It's extremely fun. Of course, my friend, being the teacher, had all their perfect addresses, perfect names. And I sent about 12.5 of these awards out to various children in the Sun Valley, Idaho area at the time. And my friend said she could not believe how these children were transformed. First of all, it gave them something positive to think about, besides the challenges in their home. Secondly, what child, no matter how old we are, doesn't love a surprise? Mom didn't send it. Grandma didn't send it. The school didn't send it. So it's kind of like the voice of the universe sent it. And it gave them something different to focus on. It built their self-esteem. And that was the first award that I started sending. And I must say that now the award that I send that makes people cry the most is I have an honorary Caregiver of Light award. That, caregiving is such a difficult thing to do. And so when a caregiver receives an anonymous award, like the voice of the universe shows up in their mail and honors them for their dedication, their patience, their compassion, it touches these people so deeply. So I have a ton of different honoring awards, lifelong learning awards, everything from elegant enchantress, humanitarian healing awards that go to doctors, free spirit awards. I probably have, I think, something like 60 honoring awards that I send to people anonymously. And I encourage other people to discover the benefits of honoring people anonymously, because it brings them so much joy. And it's, like I said, it's a way of giving unconditionally without an agenda, right? Which is so incredibly powerful. And frankly, Dr. Leslie, the most important thing that I have benefited from this, when you give anonymously like this, what happened to me was I learned how to honor myself through honoring other people. And then honoring became this sacred circle that really changed, enriched, and enhanced my life in more ways than I could ever share.
How do you get people to open their emails from an anonymous source?
Well, a lot of them I send in the mail.
Okay.
So, for example, on my website, I have them. People can download them on Etsy or from my website, and they can have them printed like a photograph, and then just send them to whoever they want in the mail. And a lot of people choose to have them printed as a 5x7 card, kind of like this one looks like, and they send them in the mail to people anonymously. They just get a nice envelope, and off it goes in the mail.
So thank you for explaining about the honoring awards. And I think it's wonderful, especially what you were saying about the children, because, if you live in a challenging home environment, you're not getting validated from anyone. And I think it's life-changing to find out that there's somebody that cares, that there's somebody that values you. I think that is such a precious gift.
The wonder of it all.
Yes.
The mystery is so incredibly powerful. And that's what a lot of people underestimate, I think, frankly. Like, I have a Childlike Wonder Award that's a lot of fun that I send to people of all ages. And I actually have come to find out, because I've been doing this for something insane, like almost 30 years. I came to find out one person was very suicidal. And getting that award in the mail, it gave them something different to think about, and the mystery of it helped them change their whole direction from absolutely being on the edge of suicide to absolutely being filled with a certain sense of wonder and, oh my goodness, like you said, somebody does care.
Yes, it gave them hope. It gave them a string of hope. And the same thing for the caregivers, all the people out there who are selflessly giving. And so often you know, as opposed to people praising them, they're just having people lumping more and more on them, or even criticizing them. And I can see how that would open up a flood of tears in somebody, to get somebody saying thank you for what you do.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. It really does. And teachers and pretty much anybody. I'm all about the unsung hero. There are so many of us.
There are.
And there's so much negativity in the world. To be able to be an anonymous benefactor really raises your self-esteem. And there's something about, you know, we talk a lot about the negative aspects of secrets, and those are there. But there are positive aspects to secrets as well, like being able to give anonymously.
And I also think, talking about the caregivers, because so often people's giving and receiving is out of balance. They're giving and they're not receiving, you know, and it's draining their energy. And I can see how this act, they are then receiving, you know, and that's such a boost, such an energy boost.
It absolutely is. And so real quickly, just shifting to the Wake Up Call Awards, wake people up. One of my most popular ones is called the Morbid Martyrdom Award. And a lot of women will send this to a very best friend. And I don't have it right here in front of me because I'm not at my home right now, but it talks about, you know, instead of, you're always giving instead of really living, and waking up to your own joy's inner call. And I mean, they're written in a tactful way, a humorous way. And when it sort of comes from out of the universe, I've had people say to me, oh, you know, my friends have been telling me that, you know, I've got to give up this martyrdom thing, and I do everything for my children and my family and everyone else, and I don't take care of myself. But there was something about getting that anonymously in the mail that it could have come from anyone. So, you know, there's something about those wake-up calls, too, that is really very profound.
If we were to send you an anonymous award, what award would it be?
Probably the honoring instigator or the anonymous truth teller. I actually, when I do my comedy show, I refer to myself as an anonymous appreciator or a courageous anonymous truth teller. I actually do both of those. And if you're up for a quick, really recent true story about a wake-up call, I'd love to share that with you if you're open to it.
Absolutely. Sure.
It's not going to be funny, though, is it?
No, this is a little on the serious note of a wake-up call. So I had a woman call me who said, I love your poem that really nails people about verbal abuse. And she said, I had you send it anonymously to my brother-in-law in Oklahoma 2 weeks ago, and I want you to know what happened. I said, okay. She said, according to my sister, he got this poem which just nails a person about the insanity and the insidiousness of verbal abuse and how it makes, you know, innocent people cry in their pillows at night. And I mean, it just really is fabulous. And so she said, at first he was mad. He was very defensive. What's this crap I bought? Ram, 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 ram. Then she said, about 2 days later, he sat her down and said, I'm wondering if one of the children might have spoken with one of their school counselors, and if by chance someone from the school said this to me. And the wife said, you know what? That's a really good possibility. And she said, that old boy found self-control he never knew he had. He started treating the children differently because somebody was watching. He found he had the ability to breathe his way through, to be more patient. He started being kinder to the children, appreciating himself more for his good behavior. And this lady called me crying on the phone saying, it's a miracle what's happened in 2 weeks in that family. And she was saying, yes, and she was thanking me, and I said, thank you. You are the one who saw the challenge, who cared enough to try to figure out a way, and you were the one who had me send that, you know, to your brother-in-law because you recognized the behavior is destructive. And I have a real itch in my craw about verbal abuse. Verbal abuse is more prevalent than anyone could ever imagine. And frankly, this wonderful poem I wrote called Shame on You. And right now, I think the last tally was that there were, 9 different battered women's shelters or domestic violence shelters who are using that poem with their women to help them find their voice and their expression about verbal abuse.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's very damaging, and I can see how the power of an anonymous letter like that would work a lot better than somebody in the family, like the wife or the sister-in-law, trying to explain to the person.
Exactly. And, you know, I really love humanity and I love people. I used to lecture, you know, I used to try to recommend books. I used to do all this stuff, and I realized that, like, how's that working for you? But the good news is, with anonymity, nobody gets thrown under the bus.
Right.
But when it's done with a little humor and a light heart, and there's something about getting it anonymously, too, that, number one, you don't know who sent it, but number two, you can either take it seriously or not. It kind of lands like humor. It gives it a little softer place to land. You don't instantly have to go, oh, that's just Iris again. You know how she is. So you're right. It is powerful.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm learning from this, because one of the original things I thought about was, you know, when I was reading about you and what you do was, well, isn't it always important to be honest? And isn't honesty not being anonymous? So I don't know what you have to say about that, but I can see, having listened to you, why in some instances being anonymous is actually more powerful force of positive change.
And thank you for bringing that up, because I do have a well thought out answer to that.
Good.
I've given it a lot of thought, seriously, my dear, over the years. If you have a lot of skin in the game, if I need to talk to my teenager, if I need to express the truth one-on-one, person-to-person, great. There's a time and a place for that. However, with kids that don't want to hear, with neighbors who you don't want to get thrown under the bus, I have a lot of compassion for whistleblowers. People who say, this is not okay, something needs to change, but they don't want to get thrown under the bus. People are punishers.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are punishers, and it's all about the message. It's not about me. I don't need to take on their garbage. If you're a verbal abuser, I'm not going to just sit back and do nothing. I will send you something anonymously, and I will let you know, no uncertain terms, there's a message, and you get to look in the mirror. So there's a time and a place for interpersonal honesty, but anonymous honesty is more powerful than anyone can ever imagine until they actually try it.
I would love to put that poem on our website somewhere, at least on your post that we're going to do about you.
I would love to email that to you, and I shall do that later today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love what you said about whistleblowers as well. I hadn't thought of that angle, because it is, I come from a corporate background, right? And I mean, I think it's such a common experience for people to find themselves in an environment where, at work, where something is going on that's not acceptable, and they are afraid for their job and their livelihood, to do anything about it, to say anything about it, or even, you know, to find a way to be an anonymous whistleblower, because emails can be traced and all of that. And so this is a very ingenious way.
Well, you know, it is. And I have to say, too, that even though sometimes I will send someone an honoring award for a friend, and in the subject line it'll say gratitude delivered here, and I only do the positive ones. But there's something about getting something in the mail. So a great example of this, when I was in the corporate world, my first really sassy award that I created was the Dastardly Dirty Old Man Award. Every office has one, my dear. Every office has one.
More than one.
So what's really funny is when, all of the women are totally in on the joke. They know that Joe Blow over there is going to get a large envelope with a certificate printed out that really calls him on being a dastardly dirty old man. And even though it's a little bit humorous, it's very direct, it's very honest. And then to watch him, glance over and watch him as he opens it. And I've honestly had many people say that he got the message and changed his behavior. And, nobody got singled out. Nobody got in trouble. And it's very difficult, to call your superior on unwanted advances. All women have gone through, most women have gone through that.
Yeah, I know I have, and it is difficult.
Certainly.
And the answer that you normally get's not very helpful either.
No, it's not.
We should get one of these awards, Dr. Leslie, for some of the naysayers that send you emails. What a great way to send it back. You know, sometimes we get some fundamentalists who email Leslie and tell her how dastardly and how she's working for the devil and all these things. And
Oh, I've got a couple good ones. I've got judgmental jackass.
Oh, I like that one.
And the other one, yeah, would fit really well. And the other one, frankly, that I have that's really, really funny, and I really love it. It's called the Religious Sermonizer Award.
Oh, cool.
Your proselytizing makes us really bored, and I already feel born again, and you know the rest of us are out having a ball. I mean, it's really pretty cute, but it nevertheless lets some people know it's like enough already. But you have some very unique ones, and pretty much for any occasion, my dear.
You know, I love that, because I have to, sometimes I get both. I get, you know, people writing and saying, thank you so much for your podcasts. They've helped me so much. And it means so much. It does bring tears to the eyes when I get that, because, you know, we're doing this as a service in our own time. And so, but then I get these other ones, and I sometimes find it difficult to transcend that hatred, you know. And so, I mean, this is a fantastic way because it would make me laugh about it, and it would offer up a mirror to that person to laugh at themselves if they want to. And
I have called ridiculing rageaholic. Ridiculing rageaholic is pretty powerful. So yeah, I do have some interesting ones, and again, I can tell the truth to these people without any venom behind it. Mm-hmm. Okay, I can send you that message, and I don't have to be all angry or all crazy about it. It's about the message. It's not about me.
Right.
You know? And I can do it with love. I mean, every time I send out that poem about verbal abuse, every time it's read at a domestic violence shelter, you know, there's so much love behind it for me. I mean, we're all here to wake up and to be able to help each other. Sometimes people just need some honesty. Sometimes they just need some humor. And other times they need some serious love and support and encouragement.
Yeah. And I think that humor, it's the great equalizer, and it's also the thing that it just most easily above anything else just raises the vibration, and it's accessible by everybody. You know, as a sort of a spiritual teacher, what I might be saying, or what someone else that labels themselves as that might be saying, is a certain number of people it can reach. But humor, everyone can laugh at some point, and everyone knows that experience of what a healing experience it is. So
it's so true. It raises the vibration big time, like you said. And one of the reasons that I love doing these awards with my comedy show is exactly that, because not only do I pick people out intuitively and I honor certain people, but then I also find out, you know, who's got a mindless moocher that they want to give an award to. But everybody applauds all the time when people accept these awards, and the energy is absolutely fantastic. Wonderful. You're right. Humor is great. It raises the vibration. And the cool thing about these awards is they're so universal. Everybody gets the comedy.
Exactly.
Everybody knows a drama queen. Everybody knows a mindless moocher or a dirty old man.
Well, on that note, we'll leave our listeners thinking about the mindless moochers and dirty old men that they know, and we'll take a quick break. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and this evening's guest, Iris Barrat. And I have to say, she's really uplifting our mood.
Thank you.
And if you're only just joining us, Iris is this amazing person. She's known as the Anonymous Instigator, and she she does many things. She has a comedy show, but she also has this online business called Anonymous Expressions, where you can anonymously send messages to people for various reasons and with various intentions. And to honor somebody, to make them feel good, or to as a wake-up call to somebody, to make them realize a behavior that they're having. And so, Iris, what are so we've been talking about the awards, but you've also got these letters called honesty letters. Can you tell us about an honesty letter and what that is and how that helps people?
Yes, so my example about verbal abuse is considered an honesty letter. And a lot of times I will use poetry, like this one, Shame on You, about verbal abuse is a poem. But I have some really great examples on my website that some people use. One is a beautiful poem about accepting gay love. It's called Forbidden Gay Love, and it really expresses it from the standpoint of the gay person who is unaccepted for their choice.
Right.
So I think poetry is a really good way to get in there and help things land and put things in a really powerful way. I oftentimes help people compose letters. I just helped a woman who was very concerned about a teenage neighbor, gorgeous young lady, who was really dressing very, very inappropriately. Her guess was she was fine when she left, when the parents left for work, and then she would change into these really skimpy things. Anyway, I helped her write this beautiful letter. And again, the honesty letters are written from a we perspective, not an I. It's not a we, it's about the message. So it's written from a we perspective. We, appreciate how beautiful and lovely your daughter are. We are concerned about how she is dressing. We know that you would want to be part of the solution. And putting it out there in such a way and sending it anonymously to the parents, so they don't have to feel overly embarrassed or targeted by anyone specifically, but they get the message. And I've got a great outline for how to write an honesty letter. This is the problem. This is how we feel about it. And it also gets to, this is what we want. And so, for alcoholism, for practically any challenge you can think of, there is a way to express the problem. This is how we feel. And when you get down to this is what we want to see you change your behavior or respect yourself or whatever it is, that's where the common ground is, right? When we all want the same wonderful things for you. And that's where people have looked at their challenge and then felt the sense of support that they sometimes are lacking to make those changes.
That's wonderful. I also read on your website that you've got I guess it's a free letter or a free technique that you teach people, which is the love letter technique. Can you share what the love letter technique is?
I love it, and I wish I could take perfect credit for it, but it's actually been published by a lot of relationship experts. But basically, here's the power in it. I always tell my clients it's worth the cost of a therapy session. It's actually priceless if you use it. But it goes through every level of emotion. So it goes through, I'm angry about, I'm frustrated because, I'm afraid of, and then you get to what you want. What I want is, what I feel I need is, and then you get down to what you appreciate is. Right. And it walks you through every level of emotion. And here's the beauty of it, my dear, is it teaches you how to process your emotions quickly and efficiently in a holistic way. You don't just get stuck on, oh, I'm worried about, or damn it, what I want is. You go through the whole range of emotions and come out with a sense of appreciation. And people oftentimes will read these back to each other. Like if you and I are in conflict, I might write one to you, you might write one to me. And then I read your letter and you hear me expressing your words and vice versa. And it's very, very healing. And it's especially good for relationships, especially with children who the parents are like, I listen to my kids. Well, do they really? It levels the playing field. It levels everything. It puts everyone on an equal footing. And everyone works with the same outline. It gives you the beginning question or the beginning statements. So it's very easy to write your statements out. It's very powerful. And I love it dearly. And what I wanted to say real quick too about all of that is the main cause of the main killjoy of our creativity, and of course creativity is so important, as we all know, the main killjoy of our creativity is repression. Feeling repressed by your boss, your culture, your family, yourself. I mean, I think it's very important for people to look at all of the different ways that they feel repressed. And so being able to write an honesty letter, being able to do a win-win emotional baggage release exercise like the love letter technique, being able to work with these awards and honesty letters, it helps people to not feel so incredibly repressed. Instead, they find creative self-expression, right? Which is opposite of repression.
Yes. Yeah, it gets the energy flowing. And
Right.
when you were describing the love letter technique, and I have it on my other screen here, so I was just looking at it. One of the things that struck me when you were describing how you do it is you write down how I feel and what I want. And so often when people are in a conflict, they're pointing the finger, I blame you, you have to change. And it's not introspective at all. It's all projection onto the other person. And so I can see how that technique is fantastic at getting the person centered back within themselves.
You're right. Some of I statements.
Yes,
which all good therapists talk about. And yet in the same breath, when after I write my statements, I can give them to you and you can read them back to me. So I feel like you have heard me. You know, so each person hears the other person's cries for help or their wishes or their desires or what they appreciate. And like I said, I wish I would have had this when I was 20 because it's taught me how to process my emotions quickly, efficiently, in a holistic way, instead of getting stuck on one. You know how the squirrel cage goes around about because we're worried about one thing or we're angry about one thing. So it's such a holistic, beautiful way to learn to process your emotions. And I want everyone to learn how to do that for greater peace and harmony and self-love.
Yes. And that last word that you said, self-love, that was the next thing I wanted to ask you about. Because I can see, even if you're not in a conflict with anybody else, sitting down and writing a love letter to yourself to get to know, because a lot of people aren't in touch with how they feel or what they want. So I can see that could be a really great way to just help people. Who am I? How do I feel? What do I really want?
That's really true. And so you can absolutely do it for yourself. And like I said, I used to sit down and write it out. Sometimes I would burn it, ceremoniously let it go. But again, I do it in a holistic way. And the thing that I've learned is that I always come back around to the love and appreciation. No matter what conflict I go through, whether it's just even my willingness to be self-honest and look at the truth. So yes, what you're saying is absolutely right and absolutely valid in my experience.
So the other thing that I thought about when I was reading about what you do is it reminds me of the tradition of sending Valentine cards, because in England, at least, the Valentine cards are always anonymous. I think in North America, perhaps they're not. But that was the whole thing when I was at school, people getting anonymous Valentine cards from people. And it made me think about a particular group of people that we get writing. We get all sorts of questions written into us on this show about all sorts of topics, but a lot of them are about relationships. And one of the most popular types of questions is about unrequited love, or is about a relationship that has broken down, and a person, usually the woman, is asking, me to do a reading for them on, will we get back together? And so, or is he going to, is some magical one going to happen that this person changes their mind? So, and really what's happening is the person is, they're looking outside themselves for their source of validation. And because the relationship is broken down, they're feeling bad and they want it to be solved. But anyway.
I get that absolutely. All those years of doing palmistry and doing entertainment, doing readings, I totally understand that, and that makes absolute sense. Good for you for recognizing that.
Yes. So I mean, I'm trying to formulate this into a question for you and what you do really, though, which is, if somebody like that came to you and was wanting some solution in the form of some kind of letter or award, what would you suggest? Would you bestow an award on them to help them wake up? Would you suggest an award that they could send to their ex? What would your solution be to that kind of question?
And again, it depends on the person, but all of those are good possibilities. So if you left your ex because, well, he's a really nice guy and he's always sorry, but he's a verbal abuser, you know exactly what I would do. He would get an anonymous, honesty letter about verbal abuse. If you were a martyr, and that was obvious to me that you had a martyrdom thing and it was all about everybody else, not about you. And the Martyrdom Award, it nails it, but it also talks about, finding the self-love. So that's what I would do. And it really depends on the person. And whenever I see difficult things, I always ask myself, what is it that this person really needs? What is it that this person needs? And like you said, a lot of times it's projection, and sometimes they just need some encouragement and support. They need to feel loved and appreciated. And sometimes when it comes from an anonymous source, here's the thing about anonymous. When you get an anonymous honoring award, everyone you look at, you have to wonder, was that you? Was that you that was so kind to send me a glorious gratitude award? Was that you? Was that you? And so it really is amazingly transformative, because the mystery of it is part of the power, for sure.
Yeah, I can see that. It provides a whole different perspective on the world. Whereas before, you're going around, feeling, I don't know, put upon or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden, there's some beautiful light somewhere. You don't know which one it's coming from, and so I can see it, that it immediately just opens things up. Now, I wanted to ask you, so do you ever get people who come to you and they want to punish somebody, that they feel hard done by, and they're caught up in a cycle of judgment and hatred, and they just want to punish somebody? And if the answer to that is yes, how do you deal with that?
Well, I really love that love letter technique.
Yeah.
Because that is the best way I've ever found to teach people to fight fair. And people need to, like you said, look within and be clear about their feelings. Here's the big thing, is that feelings are not rational. They're not. But we need to wrap up our old baggage and ship that stuff off. And the beauty is, so like if you're in serious conflict with somebody, you send them the outline and you tell them, hey, in 2 weeks, I'm going to write out all my baggage. Nothing is more important than healing my relationships. So I'm going to send all my baggage to you so that we can heal our relationship. And please use the same outline. Send your baggage off to me. I know that our baggage is not rational. It doesn't matter. What matters is healing it. So I've sent that to people before, and maybe they didn't participate, but I know they read my letter, so it was an act of power for me. I wrapped up that stuff. I told the truth on every level, and I could then let it go. A lot of people report traumas and dramas that people drag them into. Sometimes that's the only real completion and sense of power that they get out of being drugged through hell in the court system.
Right, exactly. I mean, so in you doing that, whether the other person participates or not, you're taking your power back and you're saying, I am not staying stuck in this anymore.
Absolutely. And you're saying the reason I'm sending this to you is because I am clear about wanting to heal all of my relationships. And I am clear about wanting to unload my emotional baggage. And that's exactly what you do, whether they participate or not. So you're right. It's an act of power for you. And sometimes when people are going crazy like that, that's what they need. They need to have an act of power where they heal them, where they hear themselves, process themselves, and that they're heard by someone else.
Yeah, sometimes in life, I mean, a lot of people that I've met don't understand that they can change, that things can change. And and that their whole life, past life history doesn't have to remain the same today than it was before. And what a wonderful way you've found to express that to people.
Thank you.
Great. It's great.
Well, listeners, you are tuning into Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and this evening's guest, who is called Iris Barrat. And we're having such a wonderful conversation. And it's all about actually helping people to change in a fun and humorous way. And we're just going to take a break for some messages, and then we'll be back and finding out some more about this magic fairy dust that Iris sprinkles around. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey and Iris Barrat. And she's been helping us figure out some really fun ways to tell the truth in a rewarding and safe way that is just brings a lot of light, you know, and I'm really enjoying talking to Iris about this. So we touched on this earlier, but I picked up that you sometimes do corporate events and you bring your award ceremonies to the work environment. So I can imagine that could be an absolute scream, but I can also imagine that there's a fine line. So can you tell us about some of the corporate events that you've done and your experiences with that?
Well, frankly, my favorite thing is honoring people that work for nonprofit organizations. So people love my honoring awards. I have Certificate of Sainthood awards, Loving Kindness awards, Glorious Gratitude awards. My biggest passion, my greatest gift really is honoring people. And I love my awards, and other people seem to love them as well. Where the comedy comes in is, being able to just give us all a hard time through these wonderful awards about, everybody knows a mindless moocher, and being able to laugh about it. And then someone from the audience will say, I know a mindless moocher, and I will give them the award, and they can become a courageous, anonymous truth teller and anonymously pass that on to someone that they know. And it's really fun because around people's corporate offices, some of the positive ones and some of the sassy ones get circulated around over the years. And it's kind of funny. I have one that's a coercive coworker award. It's kind of fun.
A manipulative manager award, that would be a good one.
I have a Master of Con Artistry award that's quite popular, my dear. So it's just really fun. And the good thing about it is that it's universal humor, and it's pretty clean humor. Judgmental jackass is as bad as it gets, and then I always joke about, everybody knows a jackass is a donkey, right? So it really is good for most any age group. But being able to integrate the positive honoring awards and intuitively, that's my gift and my skill set, is to be able to intuitively pick out the caregivers and pick out all of these beautiful people to honor and bring them up and honor them. And sometimes I just do an award ceremony for someone's retirement that wants to be honored. But with the comedy show, I integrate the sassy stuff too, and the wake up call awards, and it's just such universal comedy. That's the good news. I love comedy, but when you don't understand what people are talking about, it can be very subjective, kind of like poetry, or it can be really universal. And so I've really done my best to make sure that these awards are universal about our annoying behaviors. And, when people laugh together, they work well together.
That's great. Now, I also read that you have a game, and I think it's a game that helps people to do their own comedy. Can you tell us about that?
So it's called Evolving Genius Awards, and it's something that I just recently did that I really love. It's kind of personal growth shakes hands with comedy, and it's all about the awards, but it also is an opportunity for people to do creative writing. So it's kind of a funny thing. So like, for example, you get the Luck of the Draw Award, and maybe you get the Drama Queen Award, or maybe you get, the Master of Con Artistry Award. And then your partner gets to write how you evolved beyond that, what you did to change. And I've got all these great words lists, and it's kind of a creative writing thing that can bring a lot of fun and a lot of humor. You can either use the example that I've written about how the mindless moocher evolved, how he became the manager of a tool rental place, and he learned how wonderful it can be to take care of tools and to actually get a paycheck, and instead of mooching, how he evolved. So there's a lot of really fun insight and wisdom actually about how all of these people evolved, and you have the chance to create a writing about how they evolved. It's really super fun. And then of course everybody gets an honoring award at the end too, which is really fun.
I really love that, because it's got people are focusing on the positive. They're focusing on, yes, it's on a local level about somebody that but I can see the more of this that is done, it's like an evolution of the species level. The more of this that happens, everyone's focusing on positive evolution. They're believing that people that they can change. They're believing that other people can change. They're envisioning what a changed relationship would be, what a changed workplace would be, what a changed humanity would be. I find it very uplifting.
Well, thank you. And I agree. And I feel like one of the most important things that all of this does is it takes us, we get so stuck in our personal narcissistic numbskull realities. It moves us out of the personal into the universal. Like, what do most people appreciate about love and support? And, it really takes us to a universal level. It kind of integrates the personal and the universal. And that's really what the Evolving Genius Awards comedy, it's a do-it-yourself thing, but it's a creative writing thing. And it's fun to think about how these people might have evolved. And I give a great fun example that's humorous about how they evolved, as well as the funny award. It's really a blast, I think. And I think that more and more people are looking for meaningful things to do with their events. Somebody's having a retirement party. They want to do something fun. They want to bring people together for a fundraiser or whatever. So it's a lot of fun. And in fact, if one of your listeners would like one, I would love to gift one to someone. However you figure out we can do that, I would like very much. I can email it to them and they can download it and utilize it.
That's very lovely of you. And so we'll figure out a way to do that, probably from the podcast. Do that as we'll invite people who are listening to the live show to email info@drlesliephillips.com. And we'll also put something out on the podcast, and we'll give it a little time period, maybe a couple of weeks. And then at the end, we'll have a draw. That's really great. Thank you, Iris. Very
my
generous.
pleasure.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is on the podcast, I'll put one of our giveaways on there, Dr. Leslie, and people can write it and click in for that as well.
That sounds like a good idea. And I mean, I guess while we're on the subject, how do people get a hold of you if they're listening to this and they're feeling really inspired and they want to go to your website and check out all of these amazing awards and events that you do? Your website is anonymousexpressions.com?
It is.
Is that the best place for them to go if they want to contact you?
It is, in fact. And I also want to point out that I have some free giveaway things there. I also am a clinical hypnotherapist, and I have a Moving Beyond Alcoholism and Claiming a New Life visualization in both English and Spanish. I have pre- and post-surgical hypnotherapy. I have some wonderful links to free visualizations or self-hypnosis processes that are available as well.
Do you have a Stop Being a Jackass hypnosis?
No, but I got an award for you, baby. I'll send that right along with my Shame on You verbal abuse poem, darling. It's pretty good. It's popular.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, I want to thank you for the free gifts that you're giving out to people, because there's so many people that really do need help, and not everyone can afford help, and not everyone, some people are only ready to commit in the first step. And so I think that that's really wonderful. So many things I could ask you about, and I'm still curious about, but I'm aware that we're just got about 5 minutes left. And so I'm just
Listen, Dr. Leslie, we've got a lot more than 5 minutes.
Have we? Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Then I can ask all my questions.
We've got.
Well, in that case,
we've got 6.
Cool. So, I mean, this is really probably in the realms of my own fantasy here. But one of the things, because I can't see how this would practically would happen, and I know that obviously, how do you change the world? You change it one person at a time, and we each change it by changing ourselves.
Amen.
However, I just kept getting this vision of, like, imagine, because in our world today there is so much polarity, so many schisms between in many countries, whether it's Brexit or whether it's the United States and Trump's America and all these different things that people have such strong opposing views on. And I was just sort of fantasizing about everybody writing en masse, the group collective mind writing a letter to the opposing polarized group collective mind.
And that's one of the ways that I am of service, and I'm very serious about it. And again, with those honesty letters, it is written with the voice of we. It's not me and my, it's you and I, and it's taking it to a universal voice. And that's the thing about anonymity as well. It's like we. And you'll notice when I send the poem about verbal abuse, it's really written from a we. And so I really agree. I think it's very important. And I think that it's all about the message. It's not about continuing to do this.
Right.
Bump heads and blame. And, those old games don't work anymore. It's all about finding a way to get the message across and be clear and be honest. And if it can land with a little humor, great. If it's more serious, like verbal abuse, then it's more serious. But I'm with you.
Yeah, no, and I guess, so I was really clearly seeing that, well, I guess we can call it, I was seeing that about you, that yes, it's happening on the individual, but it's part of the mass consciousness shift as well. So here's another question on a slightly different tack. And that is, every single one of us is unique. And every single one of us has a unique perspective. And one of the issues in our world is that most people don't respect the unique perspective of the individual. So there's a lot of righteousness of whether it's I'm self-righteous, whether it's I'm righteous because of my religious views or my political views. And,
pick me.
And so,
all right, narcissist.
And so, but in one way, the truth is subjective. Because here we are, each one of us is a unique aspect of God. God is whole, God is all, God contains all energy and all information. But each one of us has a different perspective. And I'll use the analogy of when there's some kind of event that 20 people witness, the police get 20 different statements. And everyone's giving the correct statement from their perspective. Maybe one was standing on the top of a 10-story flat, maybe one was across the street. Everyone's approaching it from a different perspective. So I guess my question is, in the realm of what you do, what do you have to say about this? Because people being caught up in their perspective versus honoring that every other person does have a unique opinion and a unique experience and a unique self-expression. And there's no absolute right or wrong, in a way. Yes, we can all agree we don't want verbal abuse or sexual abuse and all of that, but I think you get what I'm asking.
I do. And I really think that we all have to learn detachment, a certain sense of acceptance and detachment. And for me personally, I found myself talking about this a lot. The answer for me, because I'm an empath, I feel very deeply. part of my spiritual path has been to honor that part of me. And being an empath, you have to learn how to lovingly detach. And the only way I've ever learned how to do that is by absolutely blessing that person or blessing that situation. Then I've showed up from the very highest and best part of me. Then I can let it go. Then I've served it. You know, I speak a lot about psychic children because I was a very psychic child. I still am a psychic child. And I talk about that. These poor sensitive kids, you know, the parents don't know what to do. The kids don't know what to do. Teach them how to, it doesn't matter if we send white light, green light. What matters is our intention. What matters is that we show up and serve it in the best way we possibly can. And then we can learn how to detach and let it go. And I feel like that's true, honestly, with pretty much anything and everything. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think we are nearing the end of the show, and it's a shame we never got to talk to you.
We have to have her back on again.
Yes, maybe talk about Mayan astrology, because I
definitely.
don't think we've had anyone talk about that before.
Well, I want to honor you, before we get off real quickly, I want to honor you because I really feel that you are a visionary. And because I'm a visionary, part of my spiritual path is to honor other visionaries. And I want to just leave you with my definition. My definition of a visionary from my own experience, which I see you as, both of you, is one who is inspired and haunted by humanitarian ideals. One thing to be inspired, but when you're constantly haunted to be a part of the solution, that to me is what really makes a fabulous visionary. So I really want to honor both of you for your visionary sides and all that you give on your show.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
yet,
you.
what we want to do on this show is inspire people and help humanity to evolve. So thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll see you all next week, folks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.